So you're thinking of making the move to Austin, Texas, especially now as the market is starting to change. But naturally, being from out of state, when you're looking at the greater Austin area, you're going to find the usual suspects, the places that have stature, that have reputation, that a lot of people are already talking about, such as the Leanders of the world, the Round Rocks, the Georgetowns, the Cedar Parks, the Lakeways, the Westlake Hills, the Bee Cave areas. But the point of this video is to shed some light on some places that might be sneaky or secretive or just kind of tucked away that perhaps a lot more locals might know about, but in your situation coming from out of state, you might not. And hopefully by the end of the video, help you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not any one of these places might be right for you. Stay tuned. Hey again everybody, this is Frank with the Living in Austin group at eXp Realty. Every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad, so consider subscribing if you haven't already, and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. In addition to that, we also love the reach outs we get now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to the greater Austin area. So don't hesitate, keep them coming, whether you're 9 days away or 90. Reach out to our team with you. Shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, in this video we are going over some of the best suburbs of the greater Austin area that perhaps no one really talks about. And in this video we are going over 5 of them, not really in any particular order aside from perhaps number 1, which I think for the reasons we'll explain, most people would agree is probably the best from what it has to offer. So starting off, let's get right to it. I wrote down Hutto, Texas at number 5. Hutto, Texas is interesting, and a lot of people like Hutto, Texas because it is very close enough in proximity to 2 of perhaps the more popular, well-known, and respected suburbs in the greater Austin area, but it is a bit cheaper than that. And so Hutto, Texas is going to be close to Georgetown, Texas, and Round Rock, Texas. Round Rock perhaps being the most popular place to live outside of downtown Austin as far as suburbia goes. And yes, Round Rock, Texas is its own city. It has its own zip code. I'm not disrespecting it. So people say it's a city, it's not a suburb. Well, when you're in that area of the greater Austin area, it really does feel like suburbia. So Round Rock, with quite a hefty population and a lot of things to do, is desirable, but not everyone wants to be in Round Rock. Some people want to be close enough and dabble in what Round Rock has to offer, all while being close enough to downtown Austin. Similar with Georgetown, Texas, it is the fastest growing city currently in the country, over 50,000 people, I believe. And so Georgetown is absolutely blowing up. It has its own downtown nature spots and things to do that make it very appealing. And so Hutto, Texas is perhaps 10 to 15 minutes from either one of those places. And Hutto, Texas has its own things to do. Now, once upon a time, even as early as when I got into this business a few years back, there really wasn't much to do in Hutto, Texas. But now, all of a sudden, it's really exploded. It's been dubbed a boom town, a hot spot. There's new neighborhoods, there's new stores, there's new shopping centers. I think one currently right now is in development called the Co-op District, which is going to be relatively comparable to the Domain in North Austin, if you've heard of it. And so, all things considered, Hutto, Texas is a nice slice of safe suburbia that people really like, close enough so that you're not bored, even though it is growing and has more things to do. If you do find yourself bored, you're only about 35 minutes away on average from downtown Austin, factoring in some traffic, and even closer, as mentioned, is Round Rock and Georgetown if you want the abundance of things to do that you have in those places. Lastly, on the subject of Hutto, Texas, it has a median home price of right around $440,000 currently. Now that's growing pretty quickly. I remember a few years back it was in the 300s and now it's 440. So it really is picking up, as much of course, the country is, but the greater Austin area especially. However, what makes that appealing is that with Hutto, Texas, a lot of these places in the greater Austin area are not so affordable anymore. And so when you get, I'd say, below $500,000, at least in the standards of Austin, Texas, that is what we would call affordable, right? If it's over $500,000, that's when you're getting a little bit above the median for a lot of these suburbs, at least surrounding the city. So that is a reason why Hutto, Texas is quite sought after, and it might be the perfect place for you. Up next at number 4, we have Liberty Hill, Texas. And Liberty Hill is interesting because on the flip side to Hutto, right, a lot of the reasons why people like Hutto is because they want to be in a nice, safe place, they want to be close enough to good schools, they want to have enough to do, and they want to be close enough to either the tech hub in North Austin or downtown Austin. Now, on the flip side to that, a lot of people are attracted to Liberty Hill, and these are the clients that we get who will say something along the lines of, hey, you know, we want to be close enough to Austin, within an arm's reach of Austin, but what we're really after is perhaps more of a rural feel. We want more lots where perhaps the homes can be on acres, where you're not looking out of your kitchen window into your neighbor's kitchen window, and of course close enough to good schools as well. So in the case of Liberty Hill, it is going to be pretty much due north of Leander, Texas. And in case you didn't know, Leander, Texas is perhaps one of, if not the most popular suburbs / towns / cities outside of downtown Austin. It has impeccable schools, great master plan communities, and a decent amount of things to do with future projects already in development. Well, in the case of Leander, Texas, it really is filling up fast. A lot of people bidding on brand new homes are getting pretty much beaten to it. It's really just filled up with a lot of people because it's been such a hot spot. Well, people who want to be close enough to Leander, they think, okay, well, Cedar Park, which is kind of south of Leander, is already kind of filled up. If you're going east of Leander, you're heading more towards Round Rock, which is very populated. So they're looking north and they see just north of Leander, Texas is Liberty Hill. And so that does make it appealing. You're close enough to the good schools, you're close enough to that suburbia, but it's not going to have more of a suburban feel so much as a rural feel. And a lot of people coming from very densely populated places like San Francisco or Manhattan are going to look at that and see a slice of Texas that feels more Texan, yet close enough to Austin, which I would say Austin doesn't necessarily feel very Texan. So in the case of Liberty Hill, Texas, you're going to be right around 45 minutes. It could easily be an hour with bad traffic, or if you have a heavy foot and there's no traffic, it could be under 40 minutes. But that is one downside or a plus side depending on who you are. You're not super close to Austin, you're not stuck in the traffic or the crime that's increasing. But then again, if you want to go and enjoy the city, it's there for you if you so choose to do. But if you're commuting to downtown Austin, I would give it some thought. Otherwise, Liberty Hill, Texas is quite desirable, and it does have a bit of a heftier price tag, above average in my opinion, for the towns or suburbs outside of downtown Austin, sitting right around $600,000. But again, that is because a lot of those homes out there do have land, and that is simply what a lot of people want if they can afford it. Now, moving right along to number 3 on the list, we have Bastrop, Texas. And Bastrop, Texas is a very interesting one, and it is, in my opinion, a gem of the greater Austin area. However, when you're looking at Bastrop, Texas on the map, it really looks like it has nothing to do with the greater Austin area, as opposed to places like Leander or Dripping Springs or Georgetown that seem to be close enough to it on the map. However, Bastrop, Texas is going to be roughly only about 45 minutes yet again from the city of Austin, that Austin proper area. So it does share the same relative downside as Liberty Hill, being not super duper close. So if you are commuting downtown or to the tech hub in North Austin, I would give this some thought. However, if you are working from home, or if it's really not an issue depending on your commute, if you just don't mind it that much, 45 minutes away in Bastrop, you have what I would describe as kind of a place in its own bubble. That's the thing. As far away as it looks on the map, it is still close enough to the city. And yet when you're in Bastrop, Texas, you feel like you're in your own little world. You feel as if you are kind of wrapped up in this place that only exists where it exists, if that makes sense. They have their own shopping centers, they have their own downtown area, they have their movie theaters, they have their restaurants. But a cool thing about Bastrop is that it has a lot of nature-based activities to do as well. So it's not going to feel necessarily as rural as, say, Liberty Hill. However, it's not going to feel, say, as suburban as Round Rock. Bastrop, Texas is going to feel a bit more like Georgetown, Texas, which is growing quite rapidly and is a bit more expensive. But yes, it is going to be more affordable than a lot of these other neighboring, more popular suburbs, with its own things to do, close enough to downtown. And what makes Bastrop appealing as well is that it is roughly 30 to 40 minutes away from the new Tesla plant, that gigantic freaking place right outside of Austin, Texas, where a lot of people are getting those jobs, where a lot of people are relocating here to work for. And so if I had to guess, right now as it currently stands, the median in Bastrop is right around $440,000, similar to Hutto, Texas at $440,000. But if I had to guess, Bastrop, Texas, because of its proximity to the Tesla plant, that median home price in the next year or 2 or 3 is really going to climb, in my opinion, quicker than a lot of the other places that are not close to a giant Tesla factory. So that is something to keep in mind if your timeline is sooner than later and you're looking at places that are still relatively affordable, under $500,000 with their median. Bastrop, Texas could be the perfect place with a number of things to do. It is outdoorsy, close enough to downtown, close enough to the Tesla plant, has its own charm, it has its own Southern Texan feel. and you're well located. So that is one of the reasons it is in this video. A lot of people just won't think to talk about it because by nature of its location on the map, it just feels unrelated. It feels so far out there, when in reality, it's not. So something to keep in mind regarding Bastrop, Texas. Now, real quickly before moving on, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider liking the video as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. All right, coming in at number 2, we have Buda, Texas. And this one is very interesting as well because why don't a lot of people talk about Buda, Texas? That always baffles me. It's really not mentioned regarding some of the better suburbs to live in the greater Austin area. And I think truthfully, the reason why could be that a lot of the more popular, more well-known, respected suburbs of stature outside of the city are usually going to be in the north. And that kind of baffles me because it's almost as if the South Austin area doesn't get as much respect. Truth be told, it could simply be because of the great school districts that exist in North Austin, or North Suburbia rather, with the Round Rock Independent School District or the Leander Independent School District. So I do get that, and a lot of Austin is growing north. A lot of newer things are going to be north, but that doesn't mean none of that applies to Buda, Texas. And the most attractive thing about Buda, Texas, in my opinion, is its proximity to downtown. So most of the places on this list are going to be easily 30-40 minutes plus from the city. Buda, Texas is going to be only roughly 20 to 25 minutes away from downtown Austin. Technically speaking, specifically speaking, 16 miles from downtown Austin. So that means you are roughly 20 minutes away from the paddleboarding, you're 20 minutes away from the canoeing, you're 20 minutes away from all the restaurants, all of the swimming, all of the comedy theaters, all of the art exhibits, all of the museums, all of the things that make Austin, Texas, so sought after and desirable, being one of the most relocated cities in the country for consecutive years now. And so if you live in a place that is so close to that, and it's relatively affordable, sitting at right around $475,000 with its median home price, so less than $500,000, that close to downtown, it should be talked about more, but it just isn't for some reason. And I think that might be simply because it does contrast Austin, Texas quite a bit, despite its proximity. So if you are someone who digs contrast, if you like a fast song after a slow song, if you like dessert after a savory meal, well, Buda, Texas is going to have a very rural feel in contrast to the very urban feel of downtown Austin. So Buda, Texas dubs itself the outdoor capital of Texas, and one of its flagship destinations is a gigantic Cabela's, a Walmart-sized outdoor store that has things for hunting and fishing and anything you need that regards doing anything outside. And so Buda, Texas is going to hang its hat on having that. And I don't mean to insinuate that it's some place in the middle of nowhere that has nothing to do, because as mentioned, it's right outside of Austin, Texas. So you're not going to some deserted town or anything like that. No, but it's going to be more slow paced. It's going to be more spread out. And because it is quote unquote underdeveloped, there's going to be more new places, new shops, new neighborhoods in development, more new build construction, all at a relatively affordable price tag, at least when compared to Austin, Texas itself, or the greater Austin area as a whole. And so in Buda, Texas, you do have a number of things to do. I'm not saying you're limited to absolutely nothing, but then again, if you do find yourself getting bored for whatever reason with Buda, Texas, or its vibe, or its aesthetic, or its lifestyle, just hop on 35, drive for 20 minutes, and boom, you're in the heart of one of the most sought after places in the country, which is Austin, Texas. So yes, well deserving of number 2 on this list, Buda, Texas. At long last, now coming in at number 1, we have Lago Vista, Texas, and or Jonestown. I'm going to group these two places together because they are pretty close to each other in proximity. They're basically neighbors, so it would be no different than saying Leander and Cedar Park, Texas, because if you live in Leander and you drive 5 to 10 minutes south, depending on where in Leander you are, boom, you're in Cedar Park. So Jonestown and Lago Vista are, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions as well, the absolute hidden gem of the greater Austin area. And the reason why is because they basically are lake towns, but they are lake towns that are very average priced. That's what makes it very interesting and why I'm surprised they haven't absolutely blown up. But then again, I guess the residents of Lago Vista do a good job of keeping it under wraps. So I do apologize if I'm pissing off some locals right now, exposing or shedding light on their coveted hideaway destination. But truth of the matter is, if you're coming from the coasts, right, a lot of our clientele have come from Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Oregon, Washington State, New York, the Carolinas, where you're used to having a beach. Okay, you're coming to Texas, you're not going to have a beach, whether you're in Dallas, San Antonio, Austin. I mean, Houston has Galveston, but I think any Texan would unanimously agree that Galveston isn't that nice anyway. And then you've got South Padre Island, North Padre, Corpus Christi areas. Nice beaches, but you know, nothing like the Pacific. So what does that mean? That means when you're coming to Austin and you're used to being close to water, you at least want to be close to whatever water there is in the greater Austin area, the lakes. And one of those lakes, perhaps the most epic, the most sought after, the most popular, is Lake Travis. So the more common places to live near Lake Travis are going to be on the South Shore, where you have Lakeway, Texas, you have Bee Cave, Texas, close enough, you have the Westlake Hills, places that are going to be within 10 to 20 minutes of that scenery, or even lakefront properties as well. And so in these places in West Austin, on the South Shore of Lake Travis, you're going to have median home prices that easily look like $700,000, $900,000, $1 million, $3 million, $4 million. It is prime luxurious real estate. And you know, if you are watching this video and you have deep pockets and you want to stretch the budget, those might be perfect places for you. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of people who watch these videos, they might not have that much to spend, or they might, but they just don't want to stretch the budget that much, but they still want to be close to water. And so there comes Lago Vista and or Jonestown, Texas. So the median home price of Lago Vista is going to be right around $520,000 as it currently stands, which, okay, it's not going to be in the mid to high 300s like Manor or Elgin. It's not going to be even in the mid 400s, perhaps like Hutto or Bastrop. However, it is going to be on par with Cedar Park. It is going to be on par with Leander. It's going to be on par with Round Rock, and it's going to be on par with Georgetown. Very popular, sought after suburbs of the greater Austin area. So with a comparable price tag to literally live in a lake town where you can drive 5 to 10 minutes, depending on where you live in Lago, to the lake, and take out the jet skis, take out the boats, or even if there's any lots of land on the shore to build your own custom house on the water, that is an absolute steal, with respectable schools as well. And so it just kind of has this whole package of being a sought after place. You have a decent number of things to do. I think the only downside to Lago Vista is its proximity to downtown as well, because it is on the north shore of Lake Travis. Apparently people just don't think that that exists, so they all flock to the South Shore, but the North Shore is quite desirable as well. It is just as stunning. And so again, the only thing that I would take away from it is it's going to be roughly 45 minutes from downtown Austin. So the same thing I've said about the previous places. If you're going to commute, if you're going to be spending a lot of time, that drive could be a bit of a headache. Otherwise, if you live in Lago Vista, you're kind of similar to Bastrop in your own little bubble. And downsides to that, of course, is that if you really want a lot of shopping or your favorite stores, if they're not in Lago Vista, it can easily take just 20 to 30 minutes to get out of Lago Vista with a lot of winding roads, and it just has its secluded vibe. But if you're okay with that and you want to be close to the lake and the price works for you and you're still close enough to downtown or the tech hub in North Austin, Lago Vista just might be the best town, city, suburb outside of Austin, Texas that nobody seems to talk about. And so well deserving of #1 on the list. So there you have it. Hopefully we've been able to shed some light on some places that perhaps you've just never heard of, or that people just don't go out of their way to talk about, or that the internet won't tell you about if you're trying to do research 1,500 miles away in the country considering a relocation to the greater Austin area. So maybe it is Lago Vista you want, maybe it is Buda, Texas you want, maybe it's Bastrop, or maybe you want something more popular, more respected, of more stature like Round Rock or Leander or Bee Cave or Dripping Springs. Whatever it is, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area. You just contact us, you let us know what you want. Hey, you know, we want something a bit rural but close enough to Austin. Boom. Here's Buda, Texas. Hey, we want something maybe close to some water but not astronomically expensive. Boom. Jonestown or Lago Vista. That is what we love to do. But again, the only way we can do that is by you reaching out. So don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. We've got your back when moving to Austin, Texas. And once again, every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So consider subscribing if you haven't already, and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Consider liking the video if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.